The first voice recording was made in 1860. It was a 10-second fragment of the French folk song Au clair de la lune recorded by inventor Edward Leon Scott de Martinville. But who will make the final voice recording and when? What will it be? Who will hear it?
The lives of my family. Do you think this... What do you think the formatting of this tweet is?
What do you mean by formatting?
I mean, what do the letters look like? How's the spacing?
Comic Sans.
Well, you can't
big
change
spaces.
font. But what makes a tweet look really annoying?
All caps.
All caps. Now, this is a famous person. They've got a blue check mark. Which famous person do you think it is?
They said tears were running down their face from listening to Joe Biden talk in Pennsylvania.
Yes.
They
said it's the only man I trust with the lives.
I mean, I know it's not right, but the first thing that popped in my head was Lena Dunham.
That's not right. Close, it is a woman.
Close, it is a woman. You're so close. You got the gender.
I mean... Do you want to ask some questions? See if you can get to the bottom of this tweet?
Yeah. Are they like directly involved in politics?
Not directly. No, not at all.
They actress.
They have
by profession
been in some movies, but that's not why they're famous.
Musician.
Beyonce. I think maybe...
There's no maybe. It's either yes or no.
No, not Beyonce. But that's on the right track. Female artist sort.
Tears running down my face. Jesus, I don't know.
I mean, this is a very generic kind of...
Taylor Swift.
Oh, she's way too young.
Rihanna.
Also way too young.
Cher.
That's correct. You got it.
Hey, it only took you like... That was
you
not
got that
bad
faster
for like
than I thought.
6 guesses.
Wow. Now you might be wondering, does Jason follow Cher on Twitter?
Oh, I actually wasn't wondering until you said it, but yes.
I don't. One of my professors from university retweeted it.
Yeah.
No problem with Cher, though, I guess. I don't really know much about Cher.
Other than this fucking tweet.
I mean, Joe Biden is going to protect her assets better than probably any president.
Yeah, that's what you meant by protect my family, right?
I think
my money family.
Imagine how many more assets Cher has than you.
It's nearly infinite.
He walked out in the gray light and stood, and he saw for a brief moment the absolute truth of the world. The cold, relentless circling of the intestate earth. Darkness implacable. The blind dogs of the sun in their running. The crushing black vacuum of the universe. And somewhere 200 animals trembling like ground foxes in their cover. Borrowed time and borrowed world and borrowed eyes with which to sorrow it.
And lo, for the earth was empty of form, and void, and darkness was all over the face of the deep, and we said, look at that fucker dance.
Welcome to Heat Death of the Universe. Coming at you from Seoul, South Korea. It is Wednesday, right? Yes. October 7th, year of our Lord 2020, 10:02 p.m. Korean Standard Time. We've got a few things in the pipeline today. Structured as ever, though, right?
The outline is vast. Sprawling. You're lucky that we edit these so much.
Yes,
Otherwise,
we do.
Otherwise, we would have 15 to 20 hours of intense talking points.
Every twice a week. That's a sentence, right?
Yes.
Where does the most unhinged Trump conspiracy theory come from? Well, it comes from QAnon. Who else?
That's what they say.
So did you hear...
But they don't follow my aunt's timeline.
Did you hear this? Donald Trump has coronavirus,
No,
COVID-19.
he doesn't. He's faking.
Could be.
You just watched Ferris Bueller for the first time. And got some bright ideals from it.
Yeah, like when Ferris Bueller won the presidency as an incumbent.
Yeah.
Of course. No, there's just this silly QAnon theory floating around. So, of course, like as soon as the news of Trump getting COVID hit the airways, tweet waves. Yeah, conspiracy theories were abound. So people like you imagine he's pretending so he could have a miraculous recovery, say that the virus isn't a big deal, or a way to avoid the debate. That one's really silly.
I don't know why he'd want to avoid the debate.
I don't think he's afraid of debating Biden at all.
He seemed to be having fun in the last debate.
I think he relishes it. He's looking forward to it.
He likes anything that's like him on TV.
Yeah, for sure.
Getting to say one-liners.
Also, he like had, that kind of undue confidence that he always kind of has when he was out there yelling at Biden. Or a way to delay the election. Sort of a wag the dog thing, just distracting us from his other crimes and issues. But, I mean, of course he really has it. I'm not shocked at all. But this theory that QAnon has been putting out is that this is his way of signaling to everyone that he's just about to pounce on Hillary Clinton, finally, after he's promising for so long to lock her up and doing exactly zero about that.
Why would this be his way of doing it?
It wouldn't. These Q people are fucking stupid as hell. But, I mean, the only reason to even bring this up is just how dumb the theory is. So, I'll just read straight from this article about it.
I am curious about this because I can think of funny things of why he would fake having coronavirus or but I just don't see it as like a tie-in for nailing Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, these people are dumb as fuck. So, like, the QAnon people also believe that Hillary Clinton is part of a, like, satanic pedophile ring, and The thing he says, you don't need to bring in Satan. Like, you can just like actually connect the dots between, say, like somebody like Jeffrey Epstein and Bill Clinton, and those are like legitimate or more legitimate, at least basis for sort of theories about pedophilia rings and whatnot. But pizza code shit, and this is not. But anyway, it says Trump, in their reasoning goes, is pretending to have COVID-19 as part of a grand plan to arrest Clinton. According to these geniuses, Trump communicated his intentions via a tweet on Friday morning, where he announced he and Melania had tested positive and declared, quote, "We will get through this," all caps, "together." When you pull apart the word together, it spells out to get her. That's all. I just wanted to have a laugh about that because it's so idiotic. Although this writer turned that into a longer article.
The Beatles were part of QAnon?
Oh, come to get her now?
Come to get her right now.
Yeah, of course.
Man, they were like ahead of their time. I think I'm the first person to ever say that about them.
You are. What else is in the news? Jay Leno.
Have people talked about Trump and coronavirus?
Did you fall asleep?
No, sorry. I just feel like it's all I've fucking heard for like the past 2 days. People aren't even talking about the debates anymore.
Yeah, not really, I guess. I mean, they've probably been like dissected to death.
People aren't talking about the taxes anymore. People aren't talking about the reason I haven't got my stimulus money from the IRS yet.
Yeah, where's that? Where are those headlines about you and your specific stimulus money?
This is my problem.
There is something really, I'll use the word disgusting, related to that, though, where Trump said that there will not be any stimulus money sent out until after the election. So he's just basically holding people hostage.
And by that, he means either vote for me or my cronies will never vote on stimulus money again.
Well, I mean, they're not going to do anything anyway. If they haven't for this whole time, like, there's been literally one stimulus bill passed, and it was for a single check, and to increase the unemployment benefits. But even that, I think, has already been. I think that expired.
I think
the
so.
Extra $600 a week for people on unemployment. And I saw something just the other day. It was like a fucking moron who thinks Black Lives Matter is like like a communist plot or whatever.
A terrorist organization.
And they're like, see what these people are using that extra $600 a week for? It's for this defunding the police shit. But
why would they be using money to defund something?
To protest. And
I know.
But speaking of stupid bullshit, there's a whole rash of articles, as one would expect, and these kind of articles have been out for months now, but they seem to be hitting like a peak stride of like why you should vote for Biden, basically. And like most of the persuasive like essays or whatever, and all of the like vote shaming seems to mostly be about like, vote against Trump, right? Vote against him. Who cares about Biden? He's just marginally better. Okay, I'll admit it. But a couple articles I've seen recently are saying why Biden would actually be like a net positive. And it's basically about like he would change the tone of the country, And then there's
some truth to that. I've thought about that.
Yeah, but
They put people back to sleep.
That's not a good thing. You have to actually like change the conditions that are making people miserable.
Sleep is the only way the body recovers.
Okay,
a healthy mind is number one for a healthy
should
body.
be asleep forever.
Well, obviously. If you can exist between sleep and awake, imagine the possibilities.
Well, okay. So you like this point of view then. So this is an opinion piece in the New York Times. It's just called "Elect Joe Biden, America."
That's very hypnotic. Elect Joe Biden, America.
Elect. You're getting very sleepy. You're getting very sleepy, Joe.
On the count
Sleepy Joe. Sleepy Joe.
On the count of 3, I will snap my fingers and you will come to.
As Corn Pop, my best friend.
An American of corn.
Who we get in so many goddamn good adventures with.
One day everyone in America will be Joe's corn pop. And that's when we know Joe has ascended and America is finally ready to be the America it always could have been. Just a giant bowl of cereal waiting to be eaten.
Sometimes I think when you go into your fugue states on the podcast, you're just thinking about food. That's what it like turns into. You just start like rattling off like different foods that I think are like flashing in your mind. You're like, oh, a big bowl of cereal. Why can't America make up its damn mind and order Chinese or get a burger, smash burger?
I'm a simple person.
Simple demands. Anyway, I'm gonna read just like the first paragraph of this stupid article to get a sense of what they're talking about. In the midst of unrelenting chaos, Mr. Biden, sorry, not his friends only call him Joe.
Not Joe.
Mr. Biden is offering an anxious, exhausted nation something beyond policy or ideology. Oh, I love that dumb notion of beyond ideology. In a land of magic that doesn't exist, where people don't have ideology.
Joe has ideology.
Yeah, I know. I'm saying it's an incoherent concept.
He's been clear about it. He's not going to ban fracking. He's
neoliberalism.
He thinks Medicare for all bad.
He's not a damn socialist. Didn't you see him beat that other socialist fair and square?
He beat a socialist? That's terrible.
Yeah, beat him to death on the floor of the Senate. Okay, we made it one sentence in. His campaign is rooted in steadiness, experience, compassion, and decency. This all sounds so familiar to past presidential elections. President Biden would embrace the rule of law and restore public confidence in democratic institutions. He would return a respect for science and expertise to the government. I saw him. He just had a tweet. Of course, it wasn't him. It was one of his aides. Just tweet there's these silly fucking tweets from these politicians. Like his tweet just said, "Listen to science," something like that. Or like, "Listen to the scientists." And then somebody responded with like, "No, like do policy," and they like listed out like the Green New Deal and so on and so forth. But
I think a lot
just
of the
saying I listen to scientists doesn't mean fucking anything.
The scientists I know are actually just saying, "Hey, do policy."
Well, yeah, that's the only way that anything gets done through politics.
They're just kind of like, it'd be fucking great if those other motherfuckers did their job.
Right. Here we go. More of this nonsense. This article is making me more mad reading it aloud than it was reading it in my head. He would stock his administration with competent, qualified, principled individuals. I can see like why all these like adjectives, all these words would like put somebody at ease, like even just reading this article. But it's so like obviously like meaningless. He would stand with America's allies and against adversaries that seek to undermine our democracy. He would work to address systemic injustices. This person didn't know the word systemic like until like 6 months ago. He would not court foreign autocrats or give comfort to white supremacists. His focus would be on healing divisions, really, and rallying the nation around shared values. He would understand...
Shared values against socialism.
Damn right. He would understand that his
Remember,
first
that was
duty...
a dirty word.
It is, still. His first duty always is to the American people. But Mr. Biden is more than simply a steady hand on the wheel. Look, they're going to keep pushing their luck with this. His message of unity and pragmatism resonated with the Democratic voters. Here's the part that turns my stomach. Who turned out in large numbers to elevate him above a sprawling primary field. Remember that? Remember the primary? Remember how he very justly and on his own good merits won the primary?
I would say it was very fair.
Yeah, very fair. He was very popular. He won all the states before, Obama stepped in. And
I mean, it's almost like he worked very hard for it.
He came in like 4th or something in Iowa, I think, like even below like Liz Warren. Like, anyway, there's no sense in rehashing the primaries, but it just makes me fucking furious.
I still had hope at one point this year.
Yeah, I feel like a fool, but also I did too. Just because what else? What else could you possibly do? I don't know. Yeah, I guess Bernie gave enough reason to shut off some part of my brain and hope against hope, but yeah, I'm also just so not surprised how it turned out either in retrospect.
I think
even at the time, like as it was in real time, as it was happening, I'm like, of course this is what's happening. Of course this is how it's going. But it still doesn't mean I'm not fucking pissed off about it.
I sometimes think it was my fault.
It's all your fault. It's all about you.
If someone needs anyone to blame, you can blame me.
I will. I'm gonna punch you in the goddamn head.
I did this. I'm not even sure how I did it, but just like looking at the track record of my life, this was probably something I did, and I'm sorry.
This is your Christ complex. Take all the sins of neoliberalism upon yourself.
I flew too close to the center, and this is what it got us.
So like that was such a like word salad of like emptiness, but like some people, this is in the op-ed of the New York Times,
I mean,
and it's got this really serious picture of Biden like looking all serious and
whenever
black and
you
white.
have an outing to the New York Times, you just have to make sure to resonate with your audience.
What are you saying?
I'm just saying there ain't no rodeo like the New York Times.
Yeah, I mean, some people take it extremely seriously, and I'm sure there are people who read this article and were like, just felt like a lump in their throat, and like, they felt like they probably had that same like tingle that they got when Obama did the no red America, no blue states, red states thing. Like
Cher's tweet, tears for her family.
God, the idea of crying at a Biden speech now, or at any time, but especially now, is so insane. Unless you're crying for like the state of our country, but anyway, yeah, and it's not much. I mean, there's a lot to say about it, but it's not much that we haven't already said. Just like this idea that vague platitudes are the answer is very depressing to me, and the thing is Biden's not even good at doing the vague platitudes thing. He's just so subpar in every way. Like, he's not even good at putting us to sleep even. But he's a symbol, I guess. He's this avatar, this totem that we can like put all of our hopes and dreams upon, I guess, or we're supposed to. But on the subject of like vague, shitty centrism, David Brooks. David Brooks has something to say. What do you know? A very lengthy, shitty, faux intellectual article that...
How does he keep getting jobs? I mean, David Brooks.
I don't know, really. And oh my God, this is so long. Yeah, I read maybe half of this, and that was plenty. But like the thesis, like the main point of this article, which is called "America is Having a Moral Convulsion."
Yeah.
And this is in the Atlantic. It's not in his normal New York Times column.
That traitor.
Was he even a traitor? Like, he's always been like a conservative, right? Oh, you mean he's like a traitor to like like Republicans because he's never Trumper.
I was just thinking he was a traitor to the New York Times for writing in the Atlantic.
Oh, yeah. I think he's got a maybe he doesn't have a column, but I think he's a regular contributor to the Atlantic. I think I used to think the Atlantic was like a liberal. I guess it is liberal. Just maybe I'm thinking of before I thought of the word liberal as a dirty word the way that I do now. But it seems like it seems downright conservative almost at this point, from what I understand.
I'm sure the Atlantic has published one or two good articles.
Maybe I think no, though, like in the sort of Trump derangement syndrome era, they, like a lot of like sort of milquetoast liberal publications, have been like, look, they're fucking putting, they're regularly putting David Brooks in print. They can't be that. They can't be that left.
When Trump was elected, most of these major papers, I'm just going to call them papers, even if they're not actually papers, went out of their way to hire sort of neo-lib bit Republicans because they wanted to make sure they were getting both sides of the story. That's just been like part of the mechanism since 2016.
And they feel like it gives like legitimacy to being
you
opposed
need to
to
hear
being
both
opposed.
sides.
No, but the whole thing is that they're in agreement now. So like there's David Brooks and David Frum and all these idiots, like they hate Trump, right? And these are the same people that were like pushing harder than anyone for like the war in Iraq, and like, you know, these are neocons essentially.
People who grew up at the same prep schools, who finally put away the differences of their cliques and came together against a common enemy.
Yes, the sentient Cheeto.
We're living through the worst version of the Breakfast Club.
Do I want you to expand on that?
Probably not.
Anyway, I'm not even going to read anything from this article because fuck David Brooks. But I did, and it's also just so fucking wordy, like unnecessarily wordy, and like makes reference to all kinds of like other books and whatnot. But his main idea is that the problem, if we get down to the nitty gritty, down to brass tacks, the problem with society is that we don't trust each other anymore. Instead of thinking that maybe the lack of trust amongst people is like a symptom of a deeper problem, he's attributing like all the problems to being a lack of trust, which is just, I feel like a child could see what's wrong with that. Like, and he's just written this like 10,000 word article about it. And he's just so smug, like every step of the way. I don't know. I guess I just wanted to just gloss over that and say, I read this shitty article, or not even the whole thing, I read like half of it. And it was, embarrassing. Like, peek behind the curtain, Jason and I were thinking about trying to find an article by like some wackadoo conservative or something, like something that we actually disagree with, instead of just reading like from Jacobin or Current Affairs, with stuff that is basically like straight from our brains that we agree with wholeheartedly. And in my quest to find that thing, went through some David Brooks stuff, and that's how I ended up on the Atlantic. That's how I ended up on the opinion pages of the New York Times. But never ultimately found our wackadoo article. Someday we will. But anyway, that's how I ended up here.
I think we have to look at what's that hardline conservative website?
You know what I did? I literally went through Wikipedia, looking at a list of political magazines, and they're all and they have their like political affiliation in like the table, and like I was just going to anyone that was like conservative, libertarian, right wing, and I ended up finding some weird shit, and I ended up on this Christian website, but just everything was so boring. There was just nothing I found that was really worth reading out loud. I did find this article all in the Atlantic, I think through this David Brooks article, about, well, let's just take a look at this one, the Roaring Twenties one.
Yeah.
So there's an article in the Atlantic from May. I think it's important to say when this was. I actually didn't even look at that. I actually thought this was more recent, but now it makes more sense that this is from May, because this person's like optimism is kind of weird. Prepare for the Roaring Twenties is the name of the article. The human desire to socialize will survive the pandemic.
No, it won't.
I just think, and there's no point in really like reading through this whole thing. It's not even that long, but the basic idea is just that they're trying to like put everything into perspective, and say, this idea that every generation thinks that like it's facing the most unprecedented times, it's facing the end times, but we survive and we move on. And they make reference to like the
sometimes we survive better than other times.
Yeah. They make reference to the 1918 influenza, the Spanish flu, quote unquote. The Spanish flu that started in Kansas.
The one where they thought they had fixed it, and then everyone started going out into public and started dying in much larger numbers in the first wave. 50
million dead from that. But then, hey, look, the Roaring Twenties happened. People were partying and having a great time.
I mean,
and nothing was bad ever again.
The Roaring Twenties was a great time in America. Nothing bad happened after that, as you said.
Or nothing bad happened during it. 'Cause, like, all of the fucking the gang violence and prohibition and like and the lead up to the collapse of the country at the end of the decade.
Here's the thing. Christians then, much like Christians now, know that the Roaring Twenties was the greatest decade because of prohibition. It was the moment we decided to lax laws on prohibition and let the fucking people drink again that the world just fell apart, right? I mean, I'm not 100% sure on this. In fact, I am making it up. But I'm pretty sure the stock market crash was because they decided to let people start drinking again.
Yeah, it's a total A to B causal connection. I think like the most interesting thing I got from this article in retrospect was a new term that I hadn't heard before. So,
what is it?
The beginning of the article in the second paragraph it says, in 1974, the sociologist Jib Fowles coined the term chronocentrism. Quote, the belief that one's own times are paramount, that other periods pale in comparison. So I guess it's like chronology and like centric. So like
that makes sense. I think that about most of my times.
But you're living in paramount times.
That I am the protagonist and everything else is the antagonist.
I mean, there's something pretty like natural and inescapable about people feeling like they're protagonists in a story of their life. But
my story's so fucking sad though. I've been pulling on these bootstrings so hard.
that they turned into strings.
Nowhere.
They changed from straps to strings.
Aren't they strings?
You said boot strings.
I mean, yeah, bootstrings.
Shoelaces.
You gotta pull on your bootstrings. You gotta pull on your sneaker strings.
I gotta take a break. I gotta piss. And we're back.
How was your piss break?
Epic.
Excellent. Sometimes I have to take the piss on people too.
What?
What?
You're an endless source of like fucking word blunders that just become. You said before your style of comedy is just emphasizing a word. Your style of comedy is just mispronouncing a word or putting a word where it doesn't belong.
Sometimes.
Bootstrings. Sometimes I gotta take the piss on everyone. Is that what I heard?
I mean, yeah.
Taking the piss.
Taking the piss. Is it not taking the piss on?
Out. I think it's out.
Oh, taking the piss out.
Not on.
Why would you take it out? Oh. Yeah, why would you take it out when you could take it on?
I never thought about the meaning of it, but now I am. And I guess it's like if you're joking around with someone, you would make them. Actually, it doesn't make sense either, but I know it's not taking a piss on someone.
Yeah, I think it is.
I'm just taking a piss on you, mate. Like, no one says that.
I guess you're taking the piss out of them because you've already taken everything else out of them. You got to get every last
Could be, or
I
I thought about even like you're just making them laugh so hard they piss, but like I don't know if that works either. That's the only thing I can think of, actually, though. Piss on.
And this is.
I just wish there was like, I don't know, 5 to 10 British people standing around with you saying that.
God,
Maybe
I hate British people.
Maybe some of them are listening. I think once or twice I've seen something in the stats of people in England listening to the show.
We know British people. We've met them.
Yeah, I think we'll just try to use that on Tommy really naturally one day. Like,
I will.
I'm just taking the piss on you, mate.
I doubt he'd notice.
You definitely notice. I noticed immediately. Where were we? The Atlantic. Chronocentrism.
My favorite place for golden showers, the Atlantic. On that note. Why is there no the Pacific?
Because they're waiting for you to make it.
Great. I'm glad.
I guess that could be the left-wing answer to the Atlantic.
I'm glad that I have hard-hitting journalistic questions.
Yeah, me too.
Good.
God damn it, the fucking break. I'm so confused. Lost all of that amazing rhythm and momentum we had going. What happened to it? Right. Chronocentrism. The belief that one's own times are paramount, that other periods pale in comparison. I'm just going to read a little bit from this article.
Sure.
The past few weeks have, understandably, confronted us with especially loud chorus of chronocentric voices claiming that we are on the cusp of unprecedented change. Academics, intellectuals, politicians, and entrepreneurs have made sweeping pronouncements about the transformations that the pandemic will spur. Let's keep in mind, this is from May, all right? After surveying a number of prominent economists and historians, the New York Times declared that we are about to witness the end of the world economy as we know it. Proclaiming the demise of the neoliberal era, one left-wing writer argued, whatever you might be thinking about the long-term impacts of the coronavirus epidemic, you're probably not thinking big enough. At Bloomberg View, a right-wing investor asserted that the pandemic is driving the last nail into the coffin of the globalists.
I think that there's some truth to that.
Which one? There were three things I just said.
The one, sadly, the thing the right-wing investor said, which actually makes me sad because I'm kind of into globalism. I think open borders and stuff is actually great, but...
Well, so that I thought about that recently, actually. It's like, people use this word globalism like they know what they're talking about, or like it's agreed upon what everyone's talking about.
Yeah.
But it has like so many, it depends on your, like, what kind of globalism, right? Like, I just heard like this old speech like Ralph Nader gave when he was running for president, and he was talking about like, we should be teaching kids to be like global citizens and like, you know, things like that, rather than having globalist corporations.
Sure.
So like there's like a huge difference between those two things.
And I think
right?
that's what I'm thinking of is
Right.
global citizens. Not so much global corporations. Global corporations for the most part can fuck themselves.
Well, yeah, because the idea is that they want to like dominate more and more and more and take more and more for themselves as like a, you know, this like tiny concentration of power. But and the idea of like a sort of one world globalist government sounds understandably scary to most people. But I mean, I think what like right wingers tend to mean by globalists is just the Jews. Like it's no, really, like okay,
is that really what they mean?
Yeah, Alex Jones definitely means that. When Alex Jones talks about the globalists, he's talking about the Jews, the Jews who live in the center of the earth and control the world. That's what he's really talking about.
Jews live in the center of the earth?
God damn it. Yeah. According to Alex Jones types, like basically that's the theory, is like there's this one room of like 6 Jews who control the world, right? And the thing is like I'm careful with my words here. There's a kernel of truth to the basic logic of the idea that like too few people have too much power in the world. That's like undeniable. But
the top 1%.
Of the top 1% of the top 1%.
The top 1% of the top 1%. I looked at this today, own something like 99% of the world's goods.
The top 1% or the top 1% of the 1%?
The top 1% of the 1%.
99%? That sounds a little, even for like, I know that the reality is dire, but that sounds a little exaggerated.
It does, but then you think about it, and they're the people that own companies like Jeff Bezos owning Amazon, which means that he just owns a lot of shit.
You mean are you talking about globally or in America or?
In America.
Because I mean, some of the stats I've seen, like just within America, are like the top 10%, something like that. Oh no, the top 1% own something like. God, it changes so often. I don't know what it is. Either way, it's the balance is way off, and we can all agree on that. You and I, at least.
Yes.
But how did we get here? We got hung up on the word globalist, right? Oh yeah, when you see like libertarian and like far right people using the word globalist, I just assume that's the code word for the Jews. Like it seems pretty obvious that's what they mean if you listen to them like rant for like 60 seconds or so.
When I use it, I just mean I like the ideal of being able to freely go from country to country.
No, I agree. I think the greater goal in the world would be globalism. like, even if we don't completely dissolve borders and just become one big land of humans, like, I mean, I don't even know if that's even a good thing. I think to some extent borders are okay, as long as it's just a matter of like, oh, look, this is our culture, this is our history, like that kind of shit. But like,
one day,
I think the ultimate goal should be like a world government in a way, like at least like a coalition of countries, right? I mean, that's what like, but that's why these people who like hate the globalists, like Alex Jones, hate things like the UN and, you know, NATO and whatever. I mean, there's other reasons to hate the UN and NATO, but the basic idea of,
well, the UN is spineless, and NATO doesn't exist anymore.
But the basic idea of like having a cooperative like coalition of countries is I mean, what else should the goal be? Like, I mean, I think the goal should be to have like people united in this like fairy tale way that we hear that Joe Biden is going to unite the country.
I mean, I live in a fantasy where one day we really can ascend to a reality much like Star Trek depicts.
Very progressive politics, that show, from what I've heard. I've never really watched it.
It's good stuff.
Yeah, I think isn't it the case in that show that like they've just completely transcended capitalism and like money doesn't even really exist as a concept?
That is the thing.
Yeah.
They've all decided that the best way to better humanity is to exist together.
And then go fight like a new god of the week every week throughout the galaxy, throughout the universe.
That's the thing. Once humanity unites, that's when we find out there are enemies in all corners of the universe.
But then they don't they sort of like they make like sort of peaceful treaties with the various like alien enemies.
I think the only one they don't is the Borg. But I mean, how can you?
I've heard of this Borg. I don't really know what it is though. It's kind of like the big fascist of space, something like that.
Something like that.
Trying to subsume everything. Welcome to one guy who knows about Star Trek and another guy who doesn't really know anything about Star Trek. The podcast that certainly already exists in like 12 forms on the internet somewhere. There's got to be like 12 podcasts like that where some guy who loves Star Trek explains to his friend what Star Trek is all about.
Oh yeah, definitely. I've probably listened to a podcast like that before.
You probably are paying a Patreon fee to one right now. You just can't remember.
They do start to add up, those Patreon fees.
I do. I there's so many good podcasts these days, though. I don't know. Oh, this was the last article we meant to talk about anyway, right? This Roaring 20s article. I totally forgot what we were talking about. Oh, the idea that we can get back to normal after the pandemic. That's basically the point of this article. And
I've seen a lot of people say we can't.
And this article, I think, brings up some of that as well.
I honestly think that once it goes away, things will go back to normal very quickly.
I think so too. I
don't know if that's a good thing.
But that's also why I think this article is like ultimately a fluff piece, because it's like, well, no shit. Their whole thesis is humans need social interaction. Well, of course, like everybody knows that's the reason why so many people have been breaking quarantine and like going against like.
Sure. I mean, it's very hard not to just be like, oh, fuck it, I'm going out tonight. I'm going to get a beer. Even if you know it's something you should not do.
Yeah, and I mean, we're seeing versions of that all around the world, not just with the chuds in America. Like, all over Europe, they're
everywhere has a Myrtle Beach.
But they're forcing people to go back to school, like throughout Europe, and like now there's like big new spikes in the virus because of that, of course, and the same thing's happening in America. Like, I mean, even where we live now, South Korea, like the second people get too comfortable, there's a spike. But like, luckily here, it gets like shut down really quickly and things get brought back to like manageable levels. But
there are still the crazy right-wing nuts here who protest against that.
But everyone still wears masks. That's the difference. As far as I know, I've not seen anybody that like their political identity here is like, we're not going to wear the mask. I know a lot of like religious people are not annoyed. They're furious that they are not allowed to go to church. Like churches are basically banned in Korea at this point. Because so many, like the biggest spikes throughout the pandemic have been because of church people.
I had dreams as a kid that churches would be banned. This just isn't how I thought it would happen.
Yeah. And I mean, the thing is they can still like, I don't know.
Is this the war against Christianity that I've been waiting for?
I saw a former coworker who's a very, very religious man complaining about this on Facebook, of course. Where else?
Where else can you complain about God?
And they live in Korea as well, of course. And they were saying like how hypocritical and shitty it is that they can't go to their church, even though their church follows like all of the social distancing guidelines, people wear masks and so on. Because of the fact that like these churches have been the epicenter of the biggest spikes, like just churches have been just shut down. But meanwhile, like, yeah, all of these kind of like clubs and bars and stuff remain open. And I gotta say, I agree that it is kind of hypocritical, like, but also I think the churches should be shut down still too. Like, I don't know. I don't have any like big point about that other than I don't know. These are trying times.
Live free.
It's weird. It's a weird. I certainly. I probably never would have guessed that we'd be like living through this kind of shit. Even though it's like it's natural. Like pestilence is like something that comes up all the time in the world, but this is like the most significant things. But that's the thing is, it's only been 100 years since the last really big one.
Yeah.
And I don't know when the biggest one before that was, but actually part of this article that's pretty interesting is this the writer is, I think they're born in Germany, and let me find it here. Here we go. They talk about like their childhood in Germany, and I see, growing up in Munich, I loved to visit a technology museum in the center of the city with old cars, a giant ship, and a nightmare-inducing Faraday cage. A few times a day, a man would sit inside a metal container while his colleagues directed tens of thousands of volts of electricity in his direction, miraculously sparing him, even as a giant flash of lightning struck a few inches from my face. The exhibit I remember most vividly, however, was rather plain. A freestanding wall that represented the growth of the human population over the past millennia. Starting low, near the ground, it ascended more and more steeply as it approached the present. Only at 2 points did the upward curve tarry. Around the 14th century, and again at the beginning of the 20th. The primary reason for the temporary declines in the world's population, a sign explained, was pestilence, the Black Death, and the 1918 flu pandemic. Even then, what struck me most about the wall was that it was what it didn't show. World War II and the Holocaust, in which much of my family perished, was invisible. So were many other disasters and diseases that I had learned about in school. Goes on to say, the coronavirus pandemic is a tragedy of historic magnitude. It may well be remembered as the most significant global event since the fall of the Soviet Union. I do not in any way mean to downplay either that magnitude or the suffering it will continue to cause for many years. This is the last paragraph of the article. Might as well just read it. Even so, let's avoid the temptation of chronocentrism, our word of the day. Sooner or later, this bout of pestilence will come to an end. Humanity will survive this pandemic. In its aftermath, as after so many other disasters, we will learn to thrive anew. And although the world we then inhabit will be different, it won't be unrecognizable. Again, like this, as I was reading the last like 2 paragraphs or whatever there, I was just remembering reading the bit about like the word salad of like comforting words about Joe Biden. It's kind of has a similar vibe to it.
Yeah, it does.
It's like don't worry, just chill out. Like things are going to be bad, but then they'll be fine.
So, do you want a brief history of pandemics?
Yeah, let's hear it.
So, the first major pandemic was in between year 0 and 200, and that was the Antonine Plague, which killed about 5 million people. Then, between the years of 200 and 400, there's not very exact dates on this chart I'm looking at. There was the...
I don't see how they could be super exact anyway.
Oh, sorry. Between 541 and 542. It's hard to even think of that being a real year to me. There was the plague,
that shit isn't real. Number's too small.
Plague of Justinian, which was like 30 million to 50 million people. Then you had the Japanese smallpox epidemic between year 735 to 737, which killed 1 million people. Then there was the Black Death. That killed a lot of people, actually. The Black Death was 200
Coronavirus
million.
has killed 1 million already.
Yeah. I think this chart I'm looking at is from March, so we'll just look for... We'll see. I'll get to Corona in a minute. So this is March. Just thinking of March.
Yeah, it's the beginning.
The Black Death is over. Bubonic plague did kill 200 million. It's big. It killed a lot of people.
That's the big daddy.
It's like 1347 to 1351.
Isn't that like 70% of Europe or something?
Yeah,
it's like some huge percentage.
Like an amazing amount of people. Like the world's population was very small in 13.
But even just like percentage wise, it's pretty like insane to think about.
Then you get to 1520 and you get smallpox. Smallpox wiped out 56 million people before we got that shit under wraps.
Yeah, that was a bad one.
Then we get the 17th century Great Plagues. I didn't know about. 3 million. You get the 18th century Great Plague, 600,000. We get the Cholera 6 outbreaks, which is another 1 million. Then you have the Third Plague, which was 12 million. The Spanish flu was 50 million.
Yeah, 50.
Which that was between 1980, that's 100 years ago.
Yeah.
Which also like corresponded to the Russian flu, which killed 1 million people, and the yellow fever, which killed another 150,000 people. And then the big ones after that, after the Russian flu and the Spanish flu, which the high five.
What's that?
HIV.
God damn it. Okay. I can't. You fucking got me, man. You punked me.
I'm just a terrible person.
I for a split second thought there's something called the high five that's real.
Nope. Just,
that I mean, I don't know.
Just a bad upbringing.
I guess that is still. I mean, it's weird to think of that as separate from like sort of pandemics, but
well, it is. I mean, to date, like 35 million people. That's a lot of people, and it's sad. Handled very poorly, also. There's the Asian flu.
What did Reagan said it didn't exist or something?
I wish Reagan had gotten AIDS.
He got the next best thing: Trump with coronavirus.
I thought you were going to say Alzheimer's.
It's third place.
Asian flu, 1 million people. Hong Kong flu, 1 million people.
What's the Asian flu? Is that the avian flu?
The Asian flu was from 1957 to 1958. I'll have to look it up again. I'm not really sure. And after the Asian flu and Hong Kong flu, and I wonder if they're connected to the I mean, I don't know enough about how these viruses work. There was SARS, which was only 770 people. There's swine flu, which was 200,000 people.
Wait, 770 or 770,000?
No, just 770 for SARS. Low number. MERS was only 850 people. Ebola, which I guess Obama helped with all of that. And actually, from what I understand, not giving Obama many props ever at this point in my life, but they did handle Ebola very well. If you look back on that, one of the few things they handled, partly because it wasn't happening in America.
I was gonna say,
I think actually that made it easier.
Well, I think it was also just more easily containable, like objectively than COVID. But it sounds like the majority of these things have been influenza based.
Ebola was 11,000, and COVID-19, which we're going through now, in March was 1 million, but I'm pretty sure it shot past 1 million.
1 million infected in March, maybe.
Yeah, it's got a star beside it. I didn't read what the star means.
Because we, on the last episode,
the star was at Johns Hopkins University as of
very recently, a million people have died.
What I'm looking at's been updated. The article is from March.
Oh, they updated to today.
The numbers had been updated to September 29th. Okay. Just interesting little retrospective. I didn't know enough about the history of pandemics, but I mean, Corona's already bigger than Ebola, MERS, SARS, yellow fever, swine flu, and the 18th century Great Plagues combined.
And the thing is, though, is that
basically we're failing so hard at this that we have to go back to I guess the last time this many people died from something was the Hong Kong flu in 1968 to 1970.
And I think, it's one of the interesting things in this article that I was just reading is that it shows some old photos, black and white photos of people wearing masks, like in the 1918. And I just imagine like the people that are sort of anti-maskers now would be taken aback by seeing these photos. Like, oh, all these people that we idealize from the old times, they were big liberal pussies too? Like, I don't know. But like, what I want to say is that we have this history. Like, you can say like, okay, like, in the grand history of things, like, this is no Black Death or whatever, but like, we know, like, people didn't even understand germ theory then. They didn't understand how things were, like, diseases were spread at all. Now we understand very well, like, probably as well as we're ever going to understand, like, how these things happen and the best possible ways that we have to prevent them from spreading, because we have case studies all over the world. We have countries that are like South Korea that are containing it pretty well without even having to shut down the country really at all. And then we have countries where it's, there's 2,000 cases a day, like the United States, because so many people are just pretending like it doesn't exist.
They're sick of it. They're bored of it. They're don't want it in their life anymore. The easiest way to deal with something is just say,
remember there was like shit like early on, like people like licking toilet seats and shit, like just to like show
licking doors,
to own the libs or whatever. I mean, not that that's a significant like reason why it's spreading, but like,
the
just
best way to own somebody is licking their toilet.
But that attitude of like of defiance, like against in a time of like pestilence is crazy. It's like, it's insane. Like there's the tragedy that's going, like happening like in real time right now is that people aren't like, there's so many easily preventable deaths and so much easily preventable misery. And I mean, we could have said that before the pandemic as well. Like, for example, how easy it would be to prevent all of the deaths that come to the United States from not having access to healthcare, for example.
That's a good example. I was just thinking all the deaths that happen from gun violence, but you know.
No, lack of healthcare is much worse.
I mean, that's much worse.
I mean, the number that always pops into my head is from, one particular study, but even if you want to say it's half of this number, it's still insane. 68,000 people a year die simply because they don't have health insurance. Not because they got sick, but no, because they couldn't go to a doctor. Like, and that's just crazy to think about. In a country where we like constantly like lament and memorialize 9/11, we don't lament and memorialize the 68,000 people who die every year for no good fucking reason. Yeah. Cheery.
Yeah, I mean, a much smaller number, but still a significant amount of people die just from not having dental insurance, and dental insurance is usually not even covered by like standard.
Most employers, yeah. Huh.
Well, on that note,
should we call it? Should we have a short one this time?
Just a real quick question. Was it deserved? Donald Trump contracting coronavirus. Everyone else give their takes. What do you think? Is it okay to wish death upon someone, or is it just monstrous?
Okay, 2 questions. Was it deserved? Yes, because he actively opposed wearing masks and said that there was no big deal, that everything should be opened up. He was going around shaking people's hands and blah, blah, blah. Even after he was diagnosed, because it was, it found out, it was discovered that he knew about it before even the debate with Biden. And, he did like fundraisers and stuff after that as well. And he's like literally shaking people's hands. Like Chris Christie got it. And the big one I saw today was Stephen Miller, that fucking that little Nazi piece of shit.
Good.
That one I just like out in my insides. I was jumping up and down.
If there's ever been a time where I was affirmed in my belief that there is no God, it's this time. If there's ever been a time where I've started to think, is there a God? It's also this time.
Yeah. I mean, he's probably going to be fine. But Chris Christie's almost certainly going to die from it, I think. And like I said, like with Trump, it's the way I feel about like what's the likelihood of him becoming, like getting voted into the presidency again? I'd say 50-50. Yeah, he deserved it. Is it okay to cheer on someone's death? Sure, why not?
Yeah.
I mean, there's terrible people in the world that honestly, and what shit, man? He's in his fucking 70s or whatever. I'm not. It's so. What's even more nauseating is are all the people that have like basically been cheering on for his death, except for when he finally gets sick. Then they're like, it's not okay to cheer on his death.
Oh no, he's sick now.
No, we must take the high road and
pity.
Take the high road and tell everyone it's not okay to wish ill upon this person. Even though, like, I'm sure you could find like Rachel Maddow, you could probably find like tweets or whatever of hers from like a month ago where she's basically saying, "I hope Trump dies," in so many words. But yeah, there was some Twitter lib like personality. I think he's that guy who looks like Eric Clapton, or maybe. Do you know who I'm talking about?
I think so.
The guy who's always like the first on all of Trump's tweets.
I know who you're talking about.
Does he look like Eric Clapton, or does he just use an Eric Clapton photo?
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either.
And now I'm curious.
But you know who I'm talking
I always
about.
assumed that was his photo, but maybe he is using an Eric Clapton.
Every time I see it, I think it's Eric Clapton, and then I find out it's this guy who got like famous off of the back of Trump's tweets somehow. Like he just got like Twitter famous. But yeah, he recently said like, I don't hope that Trump dies. Instead, I hope he recovers nicely and then gets voted out by the American public, and Biden comes into office and prosecutes him and sends him to jail for the rest of his life, something like that. Like, just shut the fuck up. Just say you wish he was dead.
I wish death.
I honestly,
I have no problem with every motherfucker in Washington dies.
that's what I was just about to say, basically, as well.
Let them all fucking die.
I kind of was disappointed to hear that Biden tested negative.
I'm still not 100% sure that he did.
I think they said he did, like today or very recently, but apparently they're still gonna have the debate. We'll see. I have a feeling Trump is not gonna make it to the election. Honestly, did you see the timeline of Herman Cain?
I did see the timeline to Herman Cain.
It was like 30 days, something like that. Like he went and he got it from a Trump rally. Might have even gotten it directly from Trump. Who knows?
I mean, maybe Trump wants to die as president. Maybe
I don't think he wants to die.
maybe
Like
he chose this.
one of his only like motivating things is self-preservation. But did you see? You must have seen the fucking video he made of himself returning from the hospital.
Taking the mask off. Of course, I did.
But like the like hot like the Hollywood level like cinematography of him like getting off the helicopter. Just it's like this I don't know, bombastic like Hollywood movie music and him like just like waddling to the White House and like. And then, yeah, everyone was showing the video of him, like, struggling to breathe or whatever. It looked like he was having, like, in pain, just trying to breathe like a normal human. And there were all these liberal folks, like, oh, my empathy is kicking in. My empathy is kicking in. Like, and then, like, naturally you would see, like, someone more on our wavelength, like, right below that in the comment being like, the fuck you talking about? This is hilarious. Like, anyway, I don't know.
Oddly, I think it's the best thing to happen all year. That's my take. This is the best thing to happen all year.
I would be a little happier if like it took down like so many other politicians as well.
I mean, I've already told you. My dream is it takes everyone out, and they like have to postpone.
Just sacrifice Bernie for that.
It's like postpone like the election because there's literally no one to be president. And I go, well, fuck, none of the politicians exist anymore. And,
It'd be an interesting.
I guess we got to get
vacuum.
Bob from HR.
Yeah. Jesus, I hope fucking Bernie doesn't get it. That'll make me sad.
I don't think he will.
Yeah, but did you see the thing where he was in Michigan doing Biden's job for him, you know?
Yeah, I mean, he's been campaigning harder.
But
he's been campaigning harder for Biden than Biden's been campaigning for himself.
Than he ever has, yeah. And it makes me fucking sick to my stomach that. And what this is, meanwhile,
is Bernie just a whipping boy?
Of course. And meanwhile, Biden is like just on TV the other day saying, throwing Bernie under the bus, going, "Listen, Jack, I'm not a fucking socialist. Do I look like a socialist to you? I beat the socialist. Didn't you see? I beat him by a hell of a lot." He's like just bashing Bernie.
It wasn't by a hell of a lot.
That's what he says, though. I know, but like that's what. He beat him by a hell of a lot because he fucking suspended his campaign, and he still didn't even really beat him by a hell of a lot. But anyway, but I saw this footage of Bernie in Michigan basically speaking to like nothing. Of course, there wasn't a rally because everything is Zoom now. But there was still like these Trump people came with a big banner and were like waving it in front of Bernie in Michigan, just like a Trump banner, like Trump 2020, while Bernie's like at the bully pulpit, like pounding his fist and yelling about whatever, probably saying like just how bad Trump is and we need to take him out because he can't bring himself to really say much about Joe Biden other than Joe is a friend. He's a very good man. He's a decent guy. Yeah, I don't know. Should we call this one?
Let's do it. It's called
General recommendations.
I'm going to talk about another very popular video game. People who play video games probably already know it. People who don't play video games probably don't know it. But this week I've been playing a ton of Hades. Like Hades as in the Greek god of the underworld.
The country.
Yeah, that one.
I just felt like I was you for a second.
But basically, you're the son of Hades, and you're trying to escape Hades to join the other gods on Mount Olympus. But it's got a really great story, and it's by like this independent game company called Supergiant Games, who I think has made some of the best games of the past like 20 years. They made Transistor and Bastion, which are just like two just like really beautiful games. Or like definitely indie games, but they have great storylines, and Hades also has a great storyline. Like Hades can be a bit of a difficult game, but it's really easy to fall into, and like it's like it doesn't have to be difficult. You can literally just go into the menu and enable God mode. It's not like a normal God mode where you're immortal and nothing kills you. Basically, like every time you die,
That's what God mode means.
The game becomes slightly easier for you. But because they're focused more on the story, and the story is like this ever-evolving thing where like you're the son of Hades and you constantly die trying to escape the underworld until you eventually don't die and you escape the underworld. And it's super fun, very entertaining, and I recommend it.
Cool. I feel like I always say cool after the wreck. I'm going to recommend a
Heat Death to the Universe
podcast by some up-and-coming young lads. No, I'm going to recommend a film, a movie.
I saw one of those once.
One of the moving picture shows it's very recent. It's from 2019.
The Three Ninjas?
I think late 2019. Yeah, the 2019 gritty remake of The Three Ninjas. No, it's a movie called Swallow. It's a psychological thriller. I think it's the debut of a guy. Yeah, it's his directorial debut, Carlo Mirabella Davis. It's a movie about, well, I guess to put it simply, a woman who recently gets married to like this kind of picturesque, like male model looking guy who's like I don't know, probably like a hedge fund day trader or something or another. And she's got basically this like kind of like perfect, like rich life now that she's married. And she gets bored very quickly and she starts to eat weird stuff. She has what is a real psychological disorder in the real world called, I don't know how to pronounce it. Is it pica or pica?
Pica. It's pica.
Paella?
Pica. Sorry. Pica.
Pica? Okay. Yeah, it's when people eat like inedible things for, out of some dirt, which is one of the things she eats in the movie. I do remember at some point. The poster of the film has her just like staring at a thumbtack, which is like terrifying to imagine eating.
You just gotta swallow it.
Well, doesn't make it unterrifying.
I was laughing because that's the name of the movie.
Yeah, it does sound like the name of like a 1970s porn or something, but it's I thought it was really good. It basically has like the feel of like an A24 movie, but it's not A24. The feel of like an up and coming new director who like intends to become like an auteur or something. But like it just looks really, it's well shot, it's well directed, well written, really good acting. The main actress, she seems to be kind of like an up and coming, or maybe just kind of unheard of previously. Haley Bennett is her name, and it's a good movie. It's for like the lack of a plot, it's surprisingly riveting and like keeps your attention the whole time, and makes you feel a little icky at certain moments. You know, eating a thumbtack seems horrible. Speaking of eating a thumbtack,
is it time to eat thumbtacks?
It's time to end
Delicious
it all.
Thumbtacks.
Yeah.
They melt in your stomach, not in your mouth.
Just gonna leave it there. Bye.
Adios.
Weighted down by possessions, weighted down by the gun, weighted down by the river for you to come. And whose socks were you darning? Oh, darling, while I was away too long. I went away to see an old friend of mine. His sister came over and she was out of her mind. She said, Jesus has a twin who don't know nothing about sin. She was half crazy, out of her mind, weighted down by possessions, weighted down with a gun, weighted down by the river for you to come. Her lighters were dancing. She is insane. Her brother says she's just a bitch on a golden chain. She keeps coming closer, saying I can feel it in my bones. Schizophrenia is taking me home. Weighted down by possessions, I'm weighted down with my gun. I'm waiting down by the river for you to come.